The showing of the movies has a long history in Hellertown. The first documented location was at the Independent Order of Odd Fellows Hall, which was located at 634 Main Street. Herbert S. Weisel remembered seeing his first motion picture show in 1908. It was an old silent film of a heavyweight boxing match between Bob Fitzsimmons and James Jeffreys, held in Coney Island, New York in 1899. The film was shown by Put Keller, a Lower Saucon Township resident and the keeper of the saloon in the site of the present Braveheart restaurant. The moving picture machine was placed about 25 feet from the screen and operated by hand. The hall was darkened, and as the machine was cranked, the noise made by the ratchet wheel sounded like that of a winding up of a spring of an old-fashioned wall clock. There were a number of interruptions during the show when the reels had to be changed or a torn film spliced. Due to the fluttering motion of the pictures, they were called flickers. The price of admission to my first moving picture show was 5 cents. It was the most thrilling and exciting event in the life of a 12-year-old boy. The Edward H. Ackerman American Legion Post in Hellertown was the first location John Koffler exhibited the movies from 1930 to 1935. The Sauconia Theater was opened on Friday, September 13, 1940, under the management of John Koffler. Koffler sponsored a name selection contest for the showplace of Hellertown. There was a $10 prize offered for the contest winner. However, both Grace Schreimer and Ray Dimmick selected Sauconia and split the cash. The gala opening began at 6:30 p.m. with a musical selection by the Hellertown Municipal Band, followed by welcoming remarks by Morris J. Dimmick and Chief Burgess.
This is an occasion that any community welcomes. The dedication of another public building in our modern method of living, a place of amusement, is essential. Aside from our spiritual and educational life, it is very necessary that we provide for recreation and amusement to take up those hours of leisure and relaxation. Back in the pioneer days, our forefathers had to provide their own amateur forms of entertainment for the enjoyment of the neighborhood. While this served their purpose, we of the present day have witnessed a revolution in society, and our people have become accustomed to social functions and entertainment undreamed of but a few generations ago. There are many forms of relaxation to get away from the very everyday humdrum of life, but I know of no more wholesome form that so completely lets one forget than a good motion picture. Be it travel, educational, or comedy, one can lay aside the cares and worry of the moment and replace them with enjoyment. We in Hellertown are well provided with church and school facilities, and with the past few years we have supplied the much-needed means of recreation, but up to now we lacked in entertainment. It remained for Mr. Koffler to supply that need to the community and give to us the last word in motion picture entertainment. That he has done well remains for you to be the judge. In my opinion, he has given to us a structure of which we as citizens can be justly proud. It is of the finest construction, the utmost in beauty, in architecture, and comfort. As to good taste, Mr. Koffler is to be highly complimented for giving to the borough a work of art that is an asset, both from the material point of view as well as the educational.
Phyllis was only 14 when she was hired as one of the 2 usherettes. She spent many minutes arranging the red pillbox hat and the long red gabardine cape trimmed with gold braid that fit snugly around her neck and nearly reached her knees. Phyllis carried a flashlight and carefully helped families to their seats. The audience filled the auditorium. At the opening, there were only 2 nickel candy machines for refreshments. Those Clark bars and 3 Musketeers were the favorites at the time. The admission price was 13 cents for adults and 15 cents for children. This was a nickel more for children who had become used to attending the American Legion movies for 10 cents. Phyllis had a relatively short walk to work, from Jefferson Street to Main. These walks were mainly because her pay consisted of free movie passes, never cash. The Sauconia was closed in 1966, but it was refurbished and reopened in 1968 by Ellie Koffler, daughter of the original owner. At the time, it was renamed The Movies. The struggling theater closed again for several years in the 80s and again in 2001. Ellie Koffler died in May 2002. One final event took place in the old building on March 24, 2002, when a television cable company presented a live telecast of the Academy Awards ceremony. Since then, the building has passed through the hands of various owners who have spoken of converting into a community center, housing for the elderly, or a medical facility. None of these plans have come to fruition. My name's Chris Severn. I grew up right across the street from the movie theater. I worked there for a long time. My mom helped out a lot there. She was a ticket taker and a manager for a little bit. One of my first memories of the movie theater was when they were reopening it. I grew up popping popcorn at the movie theater, and then I started working out in the front and everything like that. One of my biggest memories of the movie theater and of Ellie is that she always made everything a spectacle. When certain movies would come into town, she would hire people to dress like the characters. She would put the red carpet out. She would put the velvet ropes out. She always made it a huge gala event, even if it was just, a Friday night at the movie theater. The Movies was one of the biggest movie theaters in Pennsylvania as a single screen theater. It seated 550 people roughly. The movie theaters up in Whitehall that were single screen, dollar theaters, sat about 175. There was a 4-screen multiplex in the Whitehall Mall. Do you remember that? So you could fit almost all of those into this movie theater. That's how much bigger it is. Ellie also worked really, really hard to make it a first-run theater. It was one of the few single-screen theaters in Pennsylvania, at least, that showed first-run movies. Most of them at the time were dollar theaters or second-run theaters where they would get the movies after they were in the big multiplexes. The screen was also a lot bigger. It was a standard-sized screen for the movies. If you went to a smaller theater like this back then, the screen would have been smaller because they had to fit it in the smaller space. But because her dad had this place set up as an actual performing theater, it had a huge stage. And then underneath the screen were the old dressing rooms where the people would get ready to do the plays and things like that. So the marquee was always real tricky because it was an original marquee. So one of us was usually up on a ladder changing those lights out. My dad was here a lot working on the building and helping maintain the building and stuff like that when he could. Constant work. It's an old building, Ellie was very adamant about making sure that the movie theater never showed R-rated movies. Back in the 50s, a lot of places would show like scary movies or science fiction movies, and they would put an ambulance outside the movie theater as like a promotional gag to say, we have an ambulance on staff in case anyone has heart palpitations or needs medical assistance because the movie is so scary. She'd make an exception for a real popular movie, but she would always have a family movie to come up against it. So the matinees would be a family movie, and then she would show the adult, the R-rated movie at night. But she was very adamant about that. And she was right. It's a family town.